The sea throws the tired body against the dark sand of the beach with brute force. The sound of the waves crashing against the volcanic rocks is very loud, crushing any other sound around. When the man finally opens his eyes, the first thing he feels is the salt burning the wounds on his skin and a suffocating heat that seems to come from all sides at the same time. The sky is completely clear, without a single cloud to give a break from the strong sun punishing his head. He looks around and sees no sign of human life, no distant ship on the blue ocean, and no trace that anyone has ever passed through there before. There is only an endless line of salty water on one side and a dark green, very thick forest on the other. The man stands up slowly, feeling his legs tremble from weakness, and wipes away the black sand stuck to his face and torn clothes. He knows he is totally alone on one of the most isolated islands on the planet, and that time has started to run against him. To leave that place alive, he needs to endure 30 whole days in this forgotten place, facing the harsh weather and the lack of everything. Every decision from now on can be the difference between seeing tomorrow or disappearing forever. The first step is to walk across the hot sand, feeling his feet burn, while trying to understand the size of the challenge ahead. Upon reaching the edge of the forest, where the trees begin to create a welcome shadow, the man suddenly stops and feels his entire body freeze. On the packed dirt and soft sand, there is a huge and terrifying mark. It is a very wide footprint, with 5 long toes ending in sharp claws that tore through the ground with ease. Right behind this footprint, there is a continuous, deep groove, showing that something very heavy was dragging a thick, strong tail through there. The castaway's heart begins to race in his chest, bringing a clear warning that he has no power in this place. That mark on the ground belongs to a Komodo dragon, a giant lizard that can easily exceed 3 meters in length and hunts with terrifying patience. This island is not just a piece of land in the middle of the sea. It is the territory of animals that look like monsters from the past, perfect hunters that dominate the environment with brute force and teeth full of venomous bacteria. Danger is not only hidden deep in the forest, but could be behind any bush shaking in the wind or in any corner of the dark beach. From that moment on, fear becomes a constant companion, an invisible weight forcing the man to look back with every step he takes, knowing he has stopped being the hunter and has become the prey. Thirst begins to mistreat his body in the early hours of the morning, as the sun rises very quickly and turns the island into a very hot oven. Without drinkable water, the human body begins to fail very quickly. His mouth goes dry, his head begins to ache, and his strength fades away. The man decides to walk along the line where the forest meets the beach, searching for any sign of fresh water coming down from the stone mountains in the center of the island. After walking for a long time, he finds the path of an old creek that dried up due to the lack of rain, leaving only round stones and deep, cracked earth. Knowing that water often keeps running beneath the dry ground, he takes a thick, sharp piece of wood and begins to dig a hole in the lowest part of that dry bed. It is very hard, exhausting work that wastes precious energy he doesn't have, making sweat run into his eyes and burn his skin. He digs for more than an hour until the earth begins to change color, becoming dark and damp to the touch. The man continues removing the dirt with his bare hands until a small stream of muddy, dark water begins to sprout at the very bottom of the hole. He takes off his own shirt and tears a piece of cloth to use as a makeshift filter, waiting for the mud to settle a bit before sucking up that warm liquid with a taste of dirt, which is not pleasant, but guarantees a few more hours of life in the middle of hell. With water guaranteed for the moment, the next urgent task is to build a shelter before night arrives and changes everything. Sleeping on the beach sand or in the middle of the trees would be a terrible mistake, almost a suicide, because the island's large predators take advantage of the cold of the night to hunt more easily. The man searches for a group of strong trees with high branches, well away from the ground and out of reach of the giant lizards. He finds 2 young trees growing close to each other and begins to collect fallen bamboo and thick branches to build an elevated structure, creating a sort of high suspended bed. Using green, flexible vines hanging from the larger trees, he ties each piece of wood with very tight knots, climbing up and testing the weight with his own body to make sure everything won't collapse while he is sleeping. The hard work with the rough wood opens several painful, fluid-filled blisters on the palms of his hands, But he cannot stop because the sun is already disappearing on the horizon, painting the sky a very deep red. He covers the roof and sides of the shelter with very wide palm leaves to protect himself from the cold wind and a possible rain, finishing a small fortress high in the trees where he can close his eyes knowing he is protected from the monsters walking the ground in the dark. The first 5 days on the island pass like a great nightmare of extreme fatigue and accumulated hunger. His stomach hurts all the time, demanding food that the man cannot easily find in that hostile environment. At low tide, when the sea water recedes and reveals the moss-covered rocks, he walks very carefully so as not to slip and break a leg on the sharp stones. There, he discovers small sea snails and some dark-shelled crabs running back and forth trying to hide in the crevices. Using a sharp stone as a tool, he breaks the hard shells and eats the raw, very salty meat, which tastes bad but provides the protein he needs to keep his legs working. To improve his chances of survival, he knows he needs fire no matter what, both to cook what he finds and to scare dangerous animals away from his camp. He chooses a piece of very soft, dry wood and a harder branch to try to get an ember using the wood friction technique. He spins the branch with his hands as fast as he can, putting huge downward pressure, until the palms of his hands begin to burn with pain and exhaustion feels like it will win. Sweat drips onto the dry wood as he repeats this movement for hours without stopping for a single second, focused only on the heat of the friction. When a small wisp of gray smoke begins to rise from the accumulated wood dust, he blows with immense care onto a handful of dry leaves and coconut fibers until a small, bright flame is born, bringing a wonderful sense of relief and control in the middle of that desperate loneliness. On the 10th day, the brutal reality of the island shows its most terrifying face in a way the man will never forget for the rest of his life. He was on the beach, very close to his small campfire, cleaning the crabs he had caught on the rocks to put over the fire. The smell of the heating meat travels with the light beach wind and goes straight into the dense forest, serving as a warning to the largest resident of that place. Suddenly, the leaves of the trees begin to shake violently, and a heavy sound of breaking branches shatters the afternoon silence. Out of the shadows of the trees, a gigantic Komodo dragon appears, walking slowly toward the beach with firm, determined steps. The animal is over 3 meters long, with skin full of thick, dark scales and strong muscles moving under its skin with every step. Its long, yellow tongue moves in and out of its mouth constantly, testing the air and discovering exactly where the smell of food is coming from. The man freezes completely, feeling his heart stop for a second and the blood drain from his face as he looks at that monster advancing without any rush, but with the terrifying certainty of who rules there. Leaving the crabs behind, the man runs desperately toward the tree of his shelter and climbs through the branches with a strength he didn't even know he had in his body. From up there, tightly gripping the main trunk, he sees the giant lizard swallow the crabs whole with impressive ease, breaking the hard shells with its serrated teeth. The monster stays circling the base of the tree for hours, looking up with cold, dark eyes completely devoid of expression, testing the mind of the castaway, who tries not even to breathe so the animal won't try to climb. The arrival of the second week brings a change in the weather that makes the situation even more complicated and dangerous on the island. The blue, cloudless sky disappears, giving way to heavy, black clouds that completely cover the sun. A violent tropical storm pours down on the region, bringing very strong winds that make the trees sway from side to side and threaten to tear the palm leaf roof off the elevated shelter. The rain falls in heavy torrents, soaking the man's clothes and making his body shake with a cold he cannot control, wasting the energy he fought so hard to save. At least the rainwater serves to fill several empty coconut shells he scattered on the ground, guaranteeing a good supply of clean water to drink over the next few days. But this same rain creates a giant problem in the lower part of the forest. The creek that was previously dry turns into a river full of red mud and dark water, flooding the entire area near the beach and creating a sort of dangerous swamp. It is in this stagnant, dirty water that the second great monster of the island appears, the saltwater crocodile. Hidden beneath the muddy water, leaving only its eyes and nostrils exposed, a huge crocodile, over 4 meters long, begins to watch the banks, looking for any animal that comes close to drink water. The man discovers the danger when he goes to collect one of the coconut shells and notices what looked like a log floating against the wind. Now the threat comes from all sides, with the giant lizards on dry land and the crocodiles hidden in the water, making every step away from the shelter a dangerous choice that requires total attention. By the 20th day, body fatigue and mental pressure begin to take a very high toll that almost makes the man give up on everything. He has lost a lot of weight over the weeks, and now his ribs can be seen marked under his sun-scorched skin, which is full of scratches caused by forest thorns. Complete isolation messes with his head, creating a strange silence that he tries to fight by talking to himself out loud, just to hear the sound of a human voice and not forget who he is. Despite the suffering, he has learned to understand the secrets of that wild nature with incredible skill. He now knows the exact moment the Komodo dragons leave the forest to warm their bodies on the hot beach rocks early in the morning, and the time they return to the shade to escape the unbearable midday heat. He has learned to walk like a ghost, stepping only on hard stones or dry leaves, so as not to leave deep marks in the mud that reveal where his camp is. His clothes have turned into dirty, torn rags, and a small cut he suffered on his heel from a sharp branch begins to get red and inflamed due to the humidity of the place. Feeling a dull pain throbbing with every step, he uses what he knows about wilderness survival to burn some green leaves in the campfire and place the warm ash on top of the wound, trying to clean the injury the best way he can. Each day the sun sets becomes a major victory against the danger that seems to surround that mysterious island. The most tense and decisive moment of the entire survival happens on the 28th night, when only 2 days remained until the deadline he had set in his mind for rescue. A very strange calm takes over the air, making the forest birds stop singing and even the night insects go quiet, leaving the island in total darkness, as there was no moon in the sky. The man is lying in his shelter high up in the tree, trying to rest his aching body, when he feels the main trunk shake in a bizarre way that has nothing to do with the strength of the wind. A horrible smell of rotten meat and wet dirt fills the air, bringing a terrifying warning that danger is right beneath him. Looking carefully through the cracks in the bamboo floor, he can see a huge shadow moving in the dark right at the foot of the tree. One of the largest Komodo dragons on the island has found the spot and begun scraping the trunks supporting the shelter with its giant claws, trying to climb or knock down the entire wooden structure. The sound of those claws breaking the tree bark makes the man shake with fear, knowing that if the wood breaks, he will fall straight into the monster's mouth. Without thinking twice, he grabs a very thick branch he had kept by his side and touches the tip to the embers that were still glowing in the ground campfire before going out. With that makeshift torch releasing smoke and fire, he reaches down and thrusts the burning tip straight toward the lizard's face, screaming with all the strength he still has in his chest to try to scare the animal. The Komodo dragon takes a step back, startled by the heat and the sudden bright light, lets out a loud hiss through its nose, and walks back into the dark woods, leaving the man awake and trembling until the sun rises the next morning. The 30th day arrives bringing a beautiful, yellowish light that cuts through the forest fog, giving the final drop of hope to that man who was tested beyond all his strength. He climbs down from the tree slowly, feeling every part of his body ache from the effort of spending 4 weeks fighting not to die. He walks with difficulty to the highest part of a rocky area near the beach, where he had left a huge pile of dry branches and green leaves assembled since the first days, kept specifically to serve as a distress signal. With his eyes fixed on the straight line where the sea meets the blue sky, he spends many hours waiting, fighting against discouragement and against the false visions that hunger creates in his mind. In the middle of the afternoon, a small white that appears far away in the water, moving slowly in the direction of the beach and showing the shape of a real boat. With his hands shaking from so much emotion, he throws the remaining embers onto the pile of dry wood and blows hard until a very thick, black smoke begins to rise straight into the sky, working as a perfect warning. The boat notices the signal and changes course immediately, heading toward the dark beach where the man waits, crying with joy while wiping the dirt from his face with his calloused hands. As he steps onto the small boat that came to rescue him and looks back, watching that island full of giant predators slowly fade into the distance, he realizes he didn't conquer the nature of that place, but learned to respect the rules of the environment to manage to get out of there alive and tell his story.